Hey guys! So recently I made a video discussing underpaintings, and I mentioned that we would create a finished oil painting together using the underpainting that we started in that video. And today we're working on just that. If you're wanting to paint along with me, which I highly encourage, I'd recommend watching that video first, so I'll leave a link for it at the end of this video. We're going to be going into the second step in my oil painting process, which is the blocking in layer. Now, many artists consider this to be the first step, and if we're getting technical, this is the first color layer to be painted. I kind of just think of this as the second step in my process, since I usually go in with an underpainting first. But either way, let's get into it. Blocking in is a crucial aspect of the painting process because it's how we get started painting. Now, if you prefer to block in with acrylics, you definitely can. And the benefit of that is that you can wait like 10-15 minutes, grab a snack or something, and your acrylics will be dry so you can begin going in with your oils. This is completely up to personal preference, but in this example, we're going to be using all oil paints for the whole thing. We're going to start by mixing our colors. For this layer, I try to mix up the midtones I see in the reference photo, not worrying too much about the lightest and darkest colors. The colors I'm using are titanium white, warm white, cadmium lemon, raw sienna, burnt sienna, cobalt teal, ultramarine blue, ivory black, and manganese blue hue. We're going to be blocking in this little seascape painting, starting with the sky and then moving into the ocean water and the sand. So I'm really just focusing on mixing the overall color that I see present in the reference photo, not worrying too much about the lightest colors or the darkest colors. I'm just really trying to mix up those midtones. So I'm going to start by mixing the lightest midtone that I see in the photo, and that's going to be the lightest color of the sand. So for the sand color, I'm using titanium white, some warm white, some cadmium lemon, raw sienna and burnt sienna, and I'm just taking the smallest little bit on the tip of my palette knife here, and I can gradually keep adding more color as I see needed, but it's easier to start with less and slowly add more color because you can always add more. Once you add too much, you have to go and try and correct the colors. Once the paint that I've mixed matches the color that I'm going for in my reference photo, I will just scoop it up and transfer it over to my clean palette. Alright, the second color we're mixing here is going to be the wet part of our sand where the ocean water is coming up on shore. So for this color, we're going to mix warm white with a little bit of titanium white, a bit of burnt sienna, and a little bit of ivory black. A little bit more of the burnt sienna, and I'm just kind of mixing this up until I get a darker shade of the sand color that we originally mixed, but a little bit more on the gray side. I just keep tweaking these colors until they match the desired color that I'm going for, so I'm adding a little bit more ivory black just to darken it a little bit. And once I get that where I like it, I'm going to again scrape it off and add it to my clean palette. Alright, for the third color here, we're going to be mixing a very light blue shade, and we're doing this by just using titanium white and the cobalt teal. And more white than teal here. We're just trying to create this really light blue color, as you can see. I love using cobalt teal, there's really no other color like it. Alright, and next we're going to be mixing almost a seafoam green, and this is going to be for the lighter color in the ocean water. So I'm just grabbing some cobalt teal, a little bit of cadmium lemon, some warm white, and some titanium white. Now I'm going to be adding the darker teal color that's going to be one of the main colors in our ocean water. And I'm just mixing that with some titanium white. I'm going to split this off and keep half of it on my clean palette, and the other half I'm going to keep continuing to make a little bit darker, adding a little bit of ultramarine blue to this mix for the darker blue colors in the water. So this color I mixed up here, I knew I wanted to use it, but I didn't have it quite where I wanted it yet, so I just scraped it up and put it on the side of the mixing palette to come back to. Now I'm going to be going into the darkest shade that I'm going to have in my ocean water. This is going to be the color furthest away from us, where the water is meeting the horizon line. And for this I'm using some ultramarine blue and ivory black and mixing it with just the smallest amount of cadmium lemon and warm white. Okay, now I'm just taking a little bit of that color that I had off to the side of the palette. I'm taking about half of it, and I'm going to be adding some ultramarine blue and cadmium lemon to this to create more of a deeper blue-green color. Alright, and lastly we have to make the color for our sky, so we're going to grab some of the manganese blue hue and mix that with titanium white. And once I get that color how I like it, I'm going to scrape it off, add it to our fresh palette, and then grab the rest of the manganese blue hue on our mixing palette and add it to whatever is remaining from the sky color that we just mixed up. And this is essentially the same color we just mixed, except for it's going to be a few shades darker, and I'm going to use that at the top of the painting. And here are the colors we mixed. So to create a seamless and clean horizon line, I'm going to add a piece of tape where the ocean water is meeting the sky. Alright, and let's begin painting. So we're going to grab our lightest color that we mixed for the sky. That's the manganese blue hue and titanium white color. It was one of the last colors we mixed. We're going to grab that and dip our paintbrush into some solvent. And we're going to start painting this towards the bottom of our sky. and bring this color all the way up, almost to the top of the sky, but leaving some room showing for that darker shade that we're going to apply. Alright, so we're going to grab the darker sky color and we're going to add this to the top of our painting and blend it into the bottom half of our sky. Rinse your paintbrush and your solvent because we're going to be changing up the color now, and try to get out as much of the paint as you can. Dry it off on your paper towel or paint rag and dip your paintbrush back into the solvent, trying not to touch the bottom where that paint residue is, and then bring that solvent over to your glass palette. Now we're going to be painting the sand, so I'm getting the lightest color of the sand that we mixed up and adding that to our solvent to get a nice buttery consistency here. And we're going to be painting our sand, which is at the very bottom of the painting. Now be sure to only bring this color up to the darker line that we created whenever we did the underpainting. That line there is going to be for the darker color of the sand that we mixed up. But just kind of brush this along, making sure everything's nice and covered. Then we're going to be going in with the darker shade that we mixed up for the sand here. Now this is going to be the wet sand where the water is coming up onto shore. So we're just going to paint a line to this right on top of the lighter sand color that we just put down. Now I'm just using the small little blending brush here to blend the wet sand into the light sand a little bit. I'm not really blending too much. Alright, so we're going to be going in with the almost sea foam color that we created. It's more on the green side, the lighter green. And we're going to be painting this right above our wet sand color. So sort of just blend this color nicely into the previous one. And again, I'm just brushing this out until I have some nice coverage. You don't want to start adding a bunch of detail this soon in the painting. What you want is to lay the groundwork for the detail that's to come. So we're simply trying to cover all of the underpainting with this color layer. We can come back and make adjustments and enhancements, tweaking the color and shapes in future layers. Okay, so now we're going to grab the light blue color that we mixed for the ocean water and go right above that seafoam green. I decided to grab a larger flat brush for this to make it a little bit easier and save us a bit of time here. And lastly, we're going to be going in with the darkest color that we mixed up for the ocean water. And each time that I'm grabbing a new color, I'm rinsing my paintbrush off and grabbing more solvent to mix in with my colors. So with this darker color, I'm going to create the horizon line, being sure to have a steady hand and try to create the line as straight and even as possible. And then I'm just going to keep working this color into the previous color that we just put down and blending the two together. Just gonna grab my blending brush and sort of blend out the water just a little bit better. Again, not over blending things, just making sure that there's nice even coverage over the whole painting. And that's it for this layer. That's really all there is to blocking in. It shouldn't take you too long. Again, it's just the first step in getting colors down on your painting. I'm trying to give you guys a better representation of what it looks like to complete an oil painting from start to finish, at every step of the process in between. I hope that this is something interesting for you guys and that you're learning some new stuff. And if you decided to paint this with me, please let me know. I think that is awesome. I really appreciate you guys being here. And yeah, I hope to see you guys in the next painting video.